Hi, I'm Karen Nash, and I'm the CEO of the event production company. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about the South African Business Council. The South African Business Council help businesses and individuals create opportunities around the Middle East. We've decided to put it together a series called the GameChangers series. And what it's about people that basically in 2020, because of COVID-19, have had to pivot their business. Today with me, I have John Sanei, who's the author, keynote speaker, and futuristic strategist. I think I got that right, or Foresight Strategist. And he's going to tell you a little bit about himself. He's going to tell you about how he's pivoted his business. And we're going to spend a good hour together, basically going deep, and just enjoy yourselves. Thank you. John.
Thank you so much, Karen. Yeah, it's great to be here and with the Business Council in the UAE. I'm a big fan of the UAE and South Africa, so a great combination. Very briefly, I am a faculty member at Singularity University and an associate partner of the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies in Denmark. Both these bodies research and take a look at the future through very different angles. Singularity University in San Francisco looks at technology, whereas Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies looks at societal shifts. I think this combination is vital for all of us to understand in order to make better decisions about the future. I also author, I lecture, and I do keynote presentations. And yes, I'm a foresight strategist, bit of a mouthful, but what that means is that I help organizations and governments categorize and contextualize the future so that it gives them more courage and clarity to make decisions about a future that could otherwise be murky. Now, the best part about my job is that this is my highest excitement, my biggest fascination, to be constantly researching both these topics around technology and the changing human need states. And so I get to apply these to my own businesses as well, which really makes it fun because I can see and preempt businesses and ideas and sectors that are about to be boosted before other people, because it's just part and parcel of my life. So the way I've set up my own business is through a totally decentralized business model, meaning that I have no overhead costs. I only deal with freelancers in a networked way. I am a one-man show with as many as 20 people around me, depending on what projects I'm working on, shrinking down just to a one-man show again. There's a great saying that says the wealthiest man is not the one who has the most, but the one who needs the least. And as we move into a world of requiring adaptation, flexibility, and optimism, what we need to do is build networked, decentralized, non-geographic businesses in order for us to be able to grow and shrink as and when we start working. A second thing that this business model gives us an opportunity to do is become borderless. We can work with organizations all around the world. Doesn't need to be a geographical position that we actually focus on. So when COVID-19 happened, the two major things that I focused on was, where do I want to be when I'm in lockdown, which is where I want to be with my family on a farm in the northern mountains of South Africa, rather than the 20th floor of an apartment block by myself in Dubai. But as soon as this is over, I'm going to be coming back. But the second thing I wanted to do was to look at the ways that I could restructure my business in order to be able to start saying something new in a new way, on a new platform to new audiences around the world. And so the first 4 weeks of COVID-19, I stopped writing my fourth book called Evolution of Value, and I started writing 3 new books. And so I wrote 2 new books, part of a trilogy called Future Now and Future How. And I redesigned how I come across 2 organizations and governments. And I've really pivoted my business to become totally digital and totally fluid, shifting and changing according to what the world requires at the time.
So, John, I hear what you say, and it's very exciting what you're doing. But a lot of people right now are basically, you've got this mindset, they have so much fear. Businesses have fear, people have fear. And I mean, how do you deal with that? I mean, you're a positive, outgoing person, but a lot of people are just not like you. So, I mean, giving advice to people maybe that have been retrenched and coping with this fear, what would you say?
So look, understand something, that in order to have an optimistic framework and perspective, it takes work. It doesn't happen by mistake. It's a fitness, an emotional fitness that we need to actually work on. So if you go for a run in the morning and you can't catch your breath, it's exactly the same thing as when you become anxious. It's a lack of emotional fitness. So for the longest time, for the last 15 years, I've been working on my emotional fitness. I was also very fearful, very anxious, always worried about the future, always trying to control every outcome. And then I went bankrupt when I was 30 years old. I lost all my businesses. I lost all my houses. I lost everything. I had to come out of that depression. And the reason I came out of it is because I put fastidious amount of daily work into my perspective management. And if you are anxious and if you are fear driven, you must realize that you're unfit. That's all it is. It's a perspective shift. And so if you are in a position where you're upset, or if you've lost your job or you've lost your business, remember something. The world that we're going into is drastically different than the world we came from. You have been released from the old world of ways of doing things, and we are now being zoomed into the future where the world requires new skills and new ways to add value. So take this time, get over the mourning of your future memories, because that's also important to do, is to mourn the future plans and ideas and projections and expectations that we had. Mourn them. We go through denial, bargaining, anger, grief, and acceptance. Go through that process. And also remember, another thing that's happening to us right now as a humanity is that all traumas are starting to bubble up. You see, traumas that we have felt from very young, from childhood to our teenage years to our early 20s, can now start to bubble up because we have time on our hands and we're not rushing from pillar to post. And so now what we have is old traumas coming up as well as future memories being canceled. And this is forcing us to really face everything that we've avoided facing for the longest time. And I wrote in my first ebook, Future Now, is that what COVID-19 is doing to us on an emotional place is that it's highlighting and magnifying any existing conditions that you might have had in the past. So if you were anxious in the past, you have even more reason to be anxious now. If you were angry in the past, you have more reason to blame more people. If you were in a terrible relationship, that relationship is most probably dissolved. So this is a wonderful time to allow these things to bubble up. But as soon as you have dealt with the emotional stuff, realize that the skill sets required for the future are not linear in fashion anymore. They're multi-adaptive, multi-resilient, multi-receptive. You have to be constantly be in a state of flow and unlearning and relearning. And so welcome to the new world that we're in. It's exactly the same that happened when we went from agricultural times to industrial times. The people that were excellent at farming were absolutely useless in the Industrial Revolution. You had to retrain yourself. And we all know and laugh at the Luddites, the people back then that wanting to break down tractors and factories because it was taking their jobs away, rather than spending that time to retrain themselves and become factory workers or tractor drivers. So if you are finding yourself being angry with the world changing, or you're losing your job, or your salary's being taken away, fine, no problem. It is tough and it is sore, but retrain. The new world that we're going to have, the renaissance that's going to be coming out post-COVID-19, requires new skills. And so upgrade yourself as much as you can, both on an emotional level as well as a futuristic skill level while we're in it right now.
So in your book, Future Now, which is your version 1 of your guidebook, you speak about survivor consciousness. What do you mean by that?
So look, this has triggered every single one of us at a different place in our survivor consciousness. And survivor consciousness means you either reacting to this like a victim or a creator. And so the victim is either called a junior consciousness perspective, a drama triangle, or a victim. And there are 3 key characteristics that this person has. 1, they feel sorry for themselves, because that's what a victim does. Poor me, this is all happening to me, the world's all against me. And this is an internal dialogue many people have. And it's very secretive, because it's quite embarrassing to tell everybody out there that you're feeling sorry for yourself. But we play out this thing inside our heads. The second thing you can do when you're stuck in the drama triangle is feel sorry for people. This is being sympathetic to the world. Oh, I'm so sad because those people don't have enough food. I'm so sad because those things are happening out there. Those people that are sympathetic are hardly ever helping anybody out there, but they stew in the sadness of other people's pain. And they think they're doing them a favor. In fact, you're doing nobody a favor. In fact, you're doing the worst thing you could, even for yourself and for them. The third characteristic that is in the drama triangle is anger. I'm angry with China. I'm angry with the government. I'm angry with this. I'm angry with that. And we blame and shame anything and everything about us, of everybody else around us. Now, the characteristics that we need to be taking on are the three exact opposites. Instead of feeling sorry for ourselves, what we should be doing is becoming a creator, seeing this as an opportunity to reinvent ourselves, rethink about the skills we need to have, and bring a new impact to the world. Moving from sympathy to empathy, stopping to feel sorry for people, but actually empowering people to be better. Best example is Oprah. Oprah doesn't feel sorry for women, she empowers women. It's a very big difference. Just because you're feeling sad for women, it doesn't help anybody. But actually feeling empowered to help them helps everything. And then ultimately moving from anger to challenger, challenging yourself and challenging people out there to be better. Now, a great example of a whole system that's stuck in the drama triangle is the news networks. Now, every time you watch news, three things happen to you. You feel bad for yourself, you feel bad for other people, or you feel angry with somebody. You never feel empowered, coaching, or creative when you come out of news. It's always the drama triangle. So if you're addicted to the news cycle, you're addicted to drama. If you're feeling sorry for yourself, feeling angry, blaming, or wanting to feel like you need to feel sad for other people, you're actually stuck. You're not creating, you're not challenging, and you're not coaching. So the survivor consciousness has triggered us in different aspects of our lives in different ways, because you could be an absolute champion when it comes to your work, but in your intimate relationships, you could be a victim. You could be an actual champion when it comes to your body, but you could be a victim when it comes to money. So what you want to do, and that's why I wrote that part in the book, is that you want to take your life and you want to break it down into every sort of pillar. Money, fitness, career, intimate relationships, just name it, food. We all have these distinct relationships with these different things. And look for those three characteristics. Are you feeling sorry for yourself in that characteristic, in that pillar? Then you've got a realization that you need to get out of it. And to be honest with you, when I was writing that book, I started to break it down in my life. And wow, was I shocked how many different aspects I was secretly inside the drama triangle without even realizing I was in the drama triangle. And that's the magic of victimization, because when we fall into the trap of being a victim to ourselves, we don't even realize it often, because who else is actually telling you in your mind that you shouldn't be? It's only you. So you keep like replaying that bullshit story. I'm allowed to say that, but that rubbish story. So, so survivor consciousness. Look where it's triggering you and fix it. Take this time and get out of the drama triangle.
Okay, so then it brings us to the next question, which is, so people are trying to be positive, and the positivity, which I find fascinating, is when they say the next quarter, quarter three, quarter four, when life is back to normal, that is the way they are trying to deal with it. Now, as a foresight strategist, I mean, how do you predict that future? I mean, so these people are trying to be positive, but is life really?
Bargaining. They are not actually looking at a new world. They are addicted to familiarity. They're addicted to certainty. And what they want to do is go back to the world that they most probably weren't even that happy in, but it's just familiar.
So, but I mean, these are these CEOs that are saying this. You know, you listen to the economists and you listen to these CEOs and you're thinking, well, what are they doing with their companies then, if this is what you're saying? I mean,
look, economics and CEOs are mostly accountants. And what do accountants need? Stability, certainty, so they can extrapolate their past equations into the future. That world's done. And it was even done before COVID. We were seeing that efficiency and profitability and the chasing of the quarterly balance sheet was actually the downfall to businesses, because the businesses that were robust, that were looking at long-term investments into technologies, having tomorrow teams, engaging with new ways of bringing services to the products, to the consumers, were the ones that were getting ready for the future. So all that's happened is that 2030 arrived 10 years too early. And these CEOs are now panicking because the only thing they know is what used to happen. So they're actually being lazy in not rethinking what needs to happen. And so it's just a human psychological need for us to go back to familiarity. And a great example of this is we'll often find ourselves in marriages that were similar to our parents' marriages. And maybe some of our parents' marriages were very abusive. And what we find is like, oh my God, I'm in the same setup. It's another sort of abusive scenario. And the reason for that is that we don't look for love. We actually look for familiarity. And so what it is that as human beings right now in the state of panic, what do? You try and hold on to anything that seems familiar so that it makes a bit of sense. So let me just break down going back to normal. There is no normal. And let me explain to you why. Is that we are nowhere near the end of us understanding what COVID-19 is. Look, who can tell you whether it's mutating or not? Who can tell you if there's a second, a third, or fourth wave? Who can tell you if there's a vaccine or not? Who can tell you that once you've got it, you've now built up the immunity? Who tells you if we've got a herd immunity or not? And so there's two endings to this virus that we're going to see. One is the medical one, which will come sooner than the social one. And the social one's the second one. So the medical one, we will have some grip of it eventually, because that's what will happen. We have over 100 million. The last stat I read was we have 100 million people around the world working on finding a solution, and we'll find it. But the social norm, we don't know when that's coming. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know when that's going to be. And so these CEOs with these businesses aren't taking into account the thousands of bankruptcies that are going to be coming, the 200 million jobs that are being lost, the 500 million people going back into poverty, the $500 million all the airlines are losing right now, the lack of trust that people will have to go into planes and restaurants and cinemas. The way we spend will change, what we spend will change. And if you think about it, your and my parents, or maybe our grandparents, came from the baby boomers. And the baby boomers are motivated by safety and security because they came from the war. What do you think is going to happen to our spending power and the way we want to spend? And the idea of luxury is going to be changing. And if anybody thinks that this is ending, I've got a story for you. This is nowhere near ended, and we still have a long way to go. And so it's just them panicking, wanting to go back to the old world.
Well, that brings me back to when you were talking about the luxury. Let's talk about values and beliefs, because obviously people's values and beliefs, I'm sitting in Dubai and there are people with big motor cars and fancy jewelry and fancy Prado bags, etc., etc. Do you think people have changed? Do you think that they will continue to buy those kind of products, or what is going to happen about values and beliefs going forward?
So the whole idea of luxury is going to change dramatically. And let me explain. The top luxury brands have an 80-20 split. 20% of the people that buy top luxury brands are the super affluent. 80% of the people that buy luxury brands are the upper middle class. The upper middle class have been hurt badly from COVID-19. Those 28 Louis Vuitton handbags in your cupboard that you are now sitting with thinking, what am I doing with all this stuff? Because now you're sitting at home doing a clean or whatever the case may be. You start to realize that luxury has always been this goal that you've been trying to achieve. We are now moving into a world where luxury will become a journey of the luxury of well-being, emotionally, physically, and financially. And in order for us to be able to sustain any other sort of pandemic like this, one, two, the rise of artificial intelligence, the effectiveness it's having on the job market, we will now start to see that this upper to middle to upper class will start prioritizing different things. Now, I'm a successful guy. I've got businesses and I earn great money. I haven't had a car for 3 years. I don't own property. I find them to be an old way of owning something, showing your success. It's exactly the same way of saying, I've got a degree and a PhD, I'm going to be successful. And we all understand that a degree actually guarantees you absolutely nothing now in today's world, because guess what? There's another bazillion people who've got the same degree as you. How many accountants do you know? How many lawyers do you know? How many engineers do you know? These things used to guarantee you success. And the idea of having a car and a home and being set up in that way was the idea of success. So the very understanding of us as human beings and what we're prioritizing is going to be shifting post-COVID-19.
Yeah, talking about that, I mean, all these people that have basically gone from trying to get these degrees and incurring all these debts for themselves. I mean, what are these youngsters going to do? Because there are going to be no jobs for quite a while. So what would be your advice to these young?
Yes. There's not going to be any jobs. That whole structure of an employment market is changing to an era called forced entrepreneurship. You have to not wait for a job to come, but actually create your own way. And now you've got the internet, you just need to find 0.0001% of the people on the internet to give you $1 a month, and you can live very comfortably. And so it's not about waiting for jobs. It's not about waiting for sectors. It's not about asking me what to study. It's about what makes you most excited. What are you curious about? How can you design that into a product and 1,000 people that think you're amazing? Whether you're a baker, a speaker, a teacher, a makeup artist, a fashion designer, whatever it is, you can find a group, a tribe that follows you and looks at you to be able to give them an insight, a service, a product, a teaching, whatever it may be. So whatever it is you've qualified in, that's great. Hold on to that. But then try and look at what makes you most curious, and then combine those two and then bring that to the market. You see, the world pre-COVID-19 celebrated us becoming role players in the world of the Industrial Revolution. So the Industrial Revolution was a production line. It started off as a production line in a factory. And what did you need there? You needed efficiency, production, and profitability. Economies of scale was the big thing that you drove for. Those roles that they created at school and university was to fit into that production line. So what did you become? Lawyer, doctor, engineer, those sort of roles. Because when you went to university, you didn't have any other options. Those were the only things you could study. Today, there's no industrial revolution anymore. And in fact, we're not going into the fourth industrial revolution. I hate that comment because it's not industrial and it's not a revolution. It's in fact the first dematerialization of our world. We are dematerializing the things that we utilize. Think about photos. Think about communication. Think about all these things that are just being dematerialized. You have 15 different products into a cell phone. You can take 1 billion photos and never have to print one of them. And name it, education, they're all dematerialized. So we are entering the first dematerialization age of humanity, not the fourth industrial revolution. And so we have to realize that a new way, a new paradigm, a new skill, a new thing is going to be celebrated. And we need to become future focused, not in trying to be innovative, but actually disruptive in the way we go about setting it up.
So your books that you're writing now that are coming out, obviously you've had the time now to sit, and I'm sure you've been writing furiously. Is there, what can you tell us is going to come out, or is this a big secret?
Well, it's not a secret. It's just nobody knows. It's
no, what are you going to write about?
No, well, the third book is called Future Next Fusion. And that's what it is.
Okay.
Is that
interesting?
There is no certainty. To ask for certainty means you're stuck in last century. Because the reason I started writing these books is that organization said to me, John, please come and help us with telling us what's next. And so I wrote in Future How, my second book, is that before I give you any advice of telling you what's next to continue being profitable while we destroy the earth and have employees that are constantly anxious, let me try and suggest that we build a new socio-economic system, taking into account that we live in an abundant world, not a scarce world. All the rules in our economics is based on a scarce world. Now we live in a digital world. Everything's available to everybody. The poorest people in the world now have got 2 cell phones. My domestic lady in Cape Town, when I used to live there, had 2 cell phones. 2. Not one,
amazing.
2. And every time she had a hotspot and a Wi-Fi, she had access to all the same information as the richest people in the world. So now we need a new economic system where we're not competing but collaborating. What are we competing for? It's available to everybody. All the information is available to everybody. So for me, that's Future How. And then Future Next is saying, look, if you can't predict the future, because nobody can, if you can't get certainty about the future, because nobody can give you that, the only thing you can manage is behavior. And your behavior must be in the place and focus of adaptability, flexibility, opportunity, possibility, and optimism. That's what you have to be focused on. Because if you're not any one of those, you're going to be grumpy, upset, miserable, sulky, and an irritation to the whole world. So you've got to get over yourself, do the internal emotional work. And that's why I combine human psychology and futurism, because if you're coming at it from a drama triangle, you can talk about the future till the cows come home, but you're just stuck in your old way of thinking. So the future is not predictable. Nobody knows. The only thing you can manage is adaptability, flexibility, and wisdom. And wisdom is best described by Alan Watts. He says, the knowledgeable man has to learn something new every day, but the wise man has to unlearn something new every day. So forget about cleverness. Let's get wise. And wise is collaborative, patient, elegant, deliberate, and conscious.
Brilliant. So, John, we're going to wrap up now. So I want you to just maybe, we've covered a lot here. So, and I think there's been a lot of take-home messages already. But just if we had to sum it up, I mean, there's obviously been the mental, the emotional, et cetera, and what would be your parting message to people?
As human beings, what we justify as reasonable, what we expect from the world, what we project into the world is based on the stories we tell ourselves. The stories we tell ourselves are based on the memories we carry. And in order for us to become fluid in the future, we need to heal our memories. The irony of preparing for the future is healing your past. And when you're able to take your memories, dissect them, become objective about them, and look at the ones that actually energize you, and look at the ones that de-energize you, and get into those de-energizing memories, get to a point where you can thank those people and those situations that you think hurt you, but actually helped you and propelled you, release yourselves of those patterns, and then find yourself anew, starting from a new clean slate in order to create the future. Once you've done this, you figure the future out yourself, because it becomes easy, because you're not in an untrusting place. You're not in a resentful place. You're not in an angry place. You're not in a victim place. And so human psychology becomes paramount. The fitness of your emotional state becomes your superpower as you prepare for the future.
That's so beautiful. All right, well, John, I really thank you for your time, and I hope you stay safe and well, and enjoy yourself where in the bush, I believe.
Forest. Yes, I'm in the forest. Well, I'm in this hotel room, but this is a green screen hotel room, but I'm in the forest. Yes.
In the forest. That is so lovely. So I hope for us to meet again, and thank you very much. And to our audience, thank you, and we'll see you on our next Game Changer. Thank you very much, John. Bye.